Beneath a quiet stretch of Pennsylvania soil, something has been burning for more than 60 years. Not a building, not a forest, an entire town. The roads cracked first, then the air turned toxic. Smoke began rising from the ground as if the earth itself were breathing. Families packed their belongings. Children stopped playing outside. And slowly, almost quietly, a community disappeared from the American map. But the fire never stopped. It still burns today, deep underground, invisible, relentless, and expected to continue for another 2 centuries. How does a modern nation lose an entire town to something it cannot extinguish? How does a small mistake ripple into a disaster that even the federal government cannot control? And more importantly, could something like this happen again? This is not just a story about flames beneath the earth. It is a story about energy, industry, government response, and a fragile balance between human ambition and nature's patience. Across the world, mining towns from China to Australia would later watch Centralia's fate with quiet concern, wondering if their own foundations were just as vulnerable. If stories like this fascinate you, subscribe to join us as we uncover hidden global truths. And tell us, where are you watching from? Tonight, we travel to a place that officially no longer exists, yet refuses to disappear. Beneath a quiet stretch of Pennsylvania soil, something has been burning for more than 60 years. Not a building, not a forest, an entire town. The roads cracked first, then the air turned toxic. Smoke began rising from the ground as if the earth itself were breathing. Families packed their belongings. Children stopped playing outside. And slowly, almost quietly, a community disappeared from the American map. But the fire never stopped. It still burns today, deep underground, invisible, relentless, and expected to continue for another 2 centuries. How does a modern nation lose an entire town to something it cannot extinguish? How does a small mistake ripple into a disaster that even the federal government cannot control? And more importantly, could something like this happen again? This is not just a story about flames beneath the earth. It is a story about energy, industry, government response, and a fragile balance between human ambition and nature's patience. Across the world, mining towns from China to Australia would later watch Centralia's fate with quiet concern, wondering if their own foundations were just as vulnerable. If stories like this fascinate you, subscribe to join us as we uncover hidden global truths. And tell us, where are you watching from? Tonight, we travel to a place that officially no longer exists, yet refuses to disappear. By the mid-1980s, Centralia was no longer just a local tragedy. It had become a symbol of invisible chaos. Streets that once echoed with children's laughter now bubbled and smoked in eerie silence. Sinkholes opened without warning, swallowing gardens, sidewalks, and, in rare moments, entire vehicles. The fire beneath the town had grown relentless, following its own path, consuming coal seams that no engineer had anticipated. What had begun as a small landfill fire had transformed into a subterranean inferno that neither the townspeople nor the government could fully control. The federal government stepped in, but even its intervention could not halt the spread. Teams of engineers experimented with water injections, trenches, and even attempts to smother the fire with sand. Yet each effort seemed almost futile. Meanwhile, families were forced to leave their homes, their lives uprooted by a disaster they could neither predict nor prevent. Streets once familiar were cordoned off. Homes once filled with warmth became ghostly shells. Every demolition felt like a page being torn from the town's history. The fire did not pause. It continued its invisible march beneath the ground, indifferent to human plans. The story of Centralia reached far beyond the United States. Mining communities in Germany, China, and Australia studied the reports with alarm. In Europe, engineers debated the dangers of abandoned coal seams. In China, geologists noted that similar fires had already claimed villages in rural regions, and they quietly wondered if more oversight was needed in industrial towns. What had happened in Centralia was no longer a local warning. It was a global lesson on human oversight, industry, and nature's stubborn persistence. And yet, despite the growing international attention, the fire persisted, quiet and unyielding beneath the streets. By the late 1980s, Centralia had become a ghost town in all but name. Streets were cracked and smoking, homes abandoned, and the few residents who refused to leave spoke of a constant heat rising from the earth beneath their feet. Carbon monoxide readings spiked in unexpected areas, forcing evacuations of anyone who remained near the most dangerous zones. The town council, once oblivious to the landfill fire, now faced a calamity that no local government could manage alone. Millions of dollars were spent trying to contain the fire, but every measure seemed to buy only time, never a solution. The world watched in fascination and horror. Mining experts in Europe examined Centralia as a case study in industrial disaster. Engineers in Australia debated the risks of abandoned seams near populated areas. Even in Japan, geologists used the town as a warning, presenting papers on how coal fires could burn unchecked beneath unsuspecting communities. The fire beneath Centralia had become a global lesson. A single spark, ignored or underestimated, could escalate into a catastrophe with consequences far beyond its origin. And yet, for all the attention, the fire continued, an invisible predator beneath the streets. Children no longer played, schools closed, and families mourned not only the loss of their homes, but an entire way of life. It was a quiet apocalypse, one that left streets empty, memories smoldering, and the earth itself scarred. The town was erased from official maps, but it refused to disappear. And the question remained, how long could humanity ignore what burns beneath its feet? Today, Centralia is more shadow than town. Streets lie empty, overgrown with weeds. Graffiti marks the remnants of abandoned buildings, and the occasional plume of smoke rises from fissures in the asphalt, a reminder that the fire beneath has not forgotten. A handful of residents remain, stubborn and defiant, living among the echoes of a place the government tried to erase. Their lives are a quiet testament to resilience, to memory, to the stubborn refusal of a community to vanish entirely. The fire itself has become almost mythic, not in legend, but in fact. Experts estimate it could burn for another 200 years, an invisible inferno threading beneath the hills of Pennsylvania. Across the globe, mining towns and engineers still look to Centralia as a case study in disaster, a lesson in the delicate balance between human ambition and the forces beneath the earth. There is awe in the cautionary tale. How a small, overlooked ember became a fire that reshaped lives, towns, and even global perspectives on industry and risk. The story lingers in the mind like smoke in the air. It is a reminder that nature, once disturbed, can be patient, persistent, and indifferent. Centralia may no longer appear on maps, but its presence continues beneath streets, beneath homes, and beneath history itself. It challenges us to ask, how many other fires are burning quietly beneath the foundations we take for granted? Walking through the empty streets of Centralia today, one can almost hear the echoes of the town that once was. The laughter of children, the chatter of neighbors, the hum of daily life, all replaced by the faint hiss of smoke rising from unseen depths. It is a haunting quiet, a reminder that human ambition and nature's patience exist on separate timelines, and that one misstep can echo for decades, even centuries. Globally, Centralia has become a symbol, a cautionary tale for communities built atop hidden dangers, for governments and industries tasked with foresight, and for humanity itself. From mining towns in China to coal regions in Germany, engineers and planners study the story, knowing that beneath the surface, unseen risks can persist far longer than anyone anticipates. The fire may burn silently, but its lessons resonate loudly, across borders and generations. Centralia is not just a ghost town. It is a story of resilience, warning, and enduring mystery. The town may have been erased from maps, yet beneath the streets, the fire refuses to sleep. And in that quiet persistence, it reminds us of one truth. Even when the world tries to forget, some flames and some stories cannot be extinguished. In the end, Centralia reminds us that the smallest mistakes can ripple through time, reshaping lives, landscapes, and even history itself. A town erased from maps continues to burn beneath the earth, a silent testament to human ambition and nature's unyielding patience. Across the world, we are reminded that communities are fragile, and yet the human spirit is resilient, holding on to memory, place, and identity even when the ground beneath us betrays us. Some flames may be invisible, some stories may seem forgotten, but as Centralia shows us, both can endure far longer than anyone expects. The question is not if the world can erase a town, but whether we will ever truly forget the it leaves behind.